Hi, today I'm going to be looking at how to get your beading onto your crochet. Now, you could just do your crochet and then sit and hand sew all the beads on, but that does get a little bit tedious after a little while, depending on how much you've got on there. So why not just start with your beads on your yarn? Now, I've got a little selection here. The reason being is, I'll just move my scissors to one side. We need this. I have different plies of yarn here. So I've got a double knit, a 4-ply, and a finer cotton. A couple of different crochet hooks, depending on what I'm going to be doing. And on here, I have some different needles. I have a beading needle, a regular sewing needle, and I like quite a fine wool needle. You can get them a lot thicker than this, depending on you. It takes a bit of getting through there, but I like a nice sharp point when I'm sewing my things up because I think it makes a neater edge. So I'm just going to pop them down as well for a moment. Now, the biggest problem is how do we get the beads onto the yarn? Now, if your yarn is nice and thin like this, and depending on your bead, it's not a problem, because hopefully this would go through a regular needle. I think it might be pushing it for that one. So I'll put that one down a minute. But if your beads are fine, you're going to be using a beading needle. And there's no chance you're going to get that through, let alone that. So the argument is how do you get that into there so you can put your beads onto your yarn? Well, you clearly can't, but there is a way around that. Now, again, it does depend on the beads you're using. Now, I have a selection of beads here. There's all sorts in here, so I can turn it around that way. That's it. So I've got some pretty standard size, and I've got some very, very tiny, if you can see them. They're the petite glass beads. Now, they are very small. That's what I've used for 12th scale work. So that is why I've got the tiny mill hill. You can't really see. You can see them a little bit better. See how tiny they are? They're beautiful beads, and they are glass beads, so they are quite nice. But you could be using a larger bead, but for some reason, no matter how big your bead gets, your hole, let me get a red one so we can see a bit better. And you see that? See that? The hole doesn't really seem to get that much bigger. The only beads that have really large holes like that are your pony beads that children use. Now, if you were doing a really chunky piece of crochet, that'd be fabulous to use. I don't got any pony beads in here from what I can see. This is just some of the beads that I do use. I do like the glass ones. They can be a little bit heavy, and I do like the finer ones. These little pearl seed beads are lovely to use. Seed beads are a nice size for dolls, but saying that, these are one of my favourites. Now, I'm going to get some of those out so you can actually see. Excuse my arm a minute. I'll put the other beads to one side. Now, these aren't the tiniest of beads, but the hole is still quite small. Let's have a look what we've got in there. Yeah, look at them. Aren't they pretty? I just like collecting beads, I think. Now, again, this is the yarn, or this yarn. You think, that probably would go through. Now, if we have a look, where's my needles gone? Look at that. You put it on a magnet, it sticks to it. So it does do its job. So if I took that needle, normal needle, it goes through. Easy. So I wouldn't actually need a beading needle, but that still wouldn't take the yarn. This is a wool needle. Let's see. No chance. So you do need to somehow get that onto that. So what I'm going to do is, I'll put that down a minute. I'm going to take this sewing cotton. I'm going to cut a small length. In fact, that's probably a bit too long. I'm going to tie a little knot in it. So I'm trying to make a loop. So whichever way you want to tie a knot is fine. Let's have a look. That will do. I'm just going to trim the edge off a bit because that's a little bit too long. So basically, all I've made is a ring of sewing cotton. So it's really quite fine. Now, I think I'll take this as an example because you can see it a little bit more. So I want to get these tiny little things onto this. But as I say, you can't get that through a beading needle or a sewing needle, but I need that for these. I will use a sewing needle because I know it will go through these beads and it's a little bit easier for you to see. So all I'm going to do is I'm taking this little loop and I'm going to thread my wool through it. So you can see it. Let's get that little bit out of the way. Now, I'm now going to take my sewing needle. So it's still quite small. I don't know that I can tell how far I can bring it up. Do it slowly. No, it's not going to focus. It's a pretty standard size sewing needle, just one you get in a cheap pack from wherever, the supermarket or haberdashers. So, as I say, we just threaded through this double knit through this little loop. Now, I'm not having to do that now, so, excuse me while I just lick the end of this. And I'm hopefully going to get that through there, which I have. So you can see what I've got now. So I've got my double knit yarn, I have my loop of sewing cotton, and I've threaded my sewing needle onto that. So that is going to help us now get the beads on. Let's see if I've done it big enough. Right, so I'm going to grab a bead, choose the bright pink one because it shows better. Now I did try these a second ago and they did go over the sewing needle. You will find you'll buy a packet of beads and they could vary. One will, one won't. So let's see, fingers crossed. Oh, it goes over. It goes over. We're coming to that double knit yarn now. And, ta-da, it's on. It's that simple. So we're going to put a couple more on. I'm not really thinking about colours. I'm not thinking about design at the moment. Oh, I've just pulled my sewing needle off. But look, it just pulls straight over. Now, there would be no way we would have been able to thread that through the sewing needle. So, let's have another go through. No, I'm going to have to lick it. No, I shouldn't. Right, push it through. So, let's think. Well, I'll put, oh, I don't know, another 5. I'm going to cheat now. I'm going to put a few at a time on. Doesn't always go through so easy, but just for speed, because you don't want to watch me threading needles all day. So I've got 4 on there now, and ta-da, just pushes through. This might come out every now and again, so you do have to keep checking it, make sure it's not falling off. As I say, it's a very strange colour combination, but that's not what I'm looking at. So I'll put another 4 beads on there. That's going to come out, be careful. Push it through. And I have beads on my yarn. So I'll just double check that with you again. So basically, we make a loop of sewing cotton. I'll take it out. So we've got a loop of sewing cotton. We push our double knit yarn through the sewing cotton. We then thread the sewing cotton through the needle. We can then put the beads on that needle all the way through, and it will push on nice and steady over the double knit yarn. So basically what we've got now is we're ready. Now there's not that many beads on there, but as I say, this is only an example to show you what we could do, but you've got some beads. Now I'm going to think about starting my crochet. Move these out of the way a second. Now I'm going to use my number 4 hook again. A little bit large, I prefer to use a smaller one for my double knit, but it's easier for you to see. So there's a 4mm hook there. I have my yarn with my beads, so I'll push my beads out the way because I need to start with a chain and I don't want beads in my chain. So remember, slip knot. If you can't remember, have a look in the first tutorial and it will help you get to grips with it again. Onto the hook, move the beads down a bit further. On my hand. Now for this demonstration I'm just literally going to do 10. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 chain. You see my beads are moving up already. So I've just got 10 chain. Now normally if I was doing a little bag or something I might do a couple of rows of double crochet before I would add the bead, but to show you I want to add the bead quite soon. So I've decided I've got 10, so ooh, that's a funny number really. In fact I'll go for 12 because I can do 3s then. 11, 12, that's it. So I would do 1, 2 normal, add a bead, 1, 2, add a bead, 1, 2, add a bead. So see how that one works out. Remember, in, pull through, pull through 2 for a UK double crochet. I'm going to do one more, in, pull through 2. Now I want to bead on the next one, so I'm going to take just one of the beads, thread it all the way along so it's near my work. Now I'm going to go in first. I'm going to push that bead all the way behind that stitch. I'll show you that again. Right, so I push my hook in ready, and I want my bead behind there ready, and then carry on with my stitch. A little bit trickier to do. Right, so we have a bead, and you see, so I'm going to do 2. That one doesn't really show up because it's a turquoise bead on turquoise into. Hopefully the next one will show up a little bit better. I've done 2 double crochets. I know I want my bead in the next one. There aren't right or wrong ways. I mean, whichever way you want to do it. You can just push the bead down ready and do the stitch, but it sort of ends up a little bit at the back, and I don't want that. So I'm going to take that out again, and I'll do it the way I've just done. Right, so we go in, we push the bead all the way down to the back, we grab the yarn, we pull it through, we carry on as a double crochet. So the bead's at the front now. You can see this is quite loose because I am using that 4mm hook, but it makes it easier for you to see. So I've done 2 double crochets. I've gone in. I'm going to find another bead. Pull that bead all the way along so it's behind the stitch. Grab the yarn, pull it through, and because it's a bit around the bead, it's a bit tricky to pull, and pull it through. So we can just push the bead through. And you see we've got some beads on there now. So we will do 2 more. 1 and 2. On this last one, I want another bead in. I'm on my last stitch. It's not exactly made a pattern, but it just gives you the idea. So I've pushed it through. I grab the bead, pull it all the way to the back. You might have to keep pushing them down because they do get in your way. Push it down all the way and pull it through and do a stitch. Yep. Right, so we can see we've got a little line of beads in our work. So I'm not going to do the next row as beads. I'm just going to do a double crochet. Now you can see where the bead is. That's where the first stitch is going to be. Just the bead's a little bit in your way, but you get used to that after a few. So I'm just going to do a double crochet all the way along because I don't want a bead on every row. Also, sometimes with crochet you can find that if you do them on opposite sides, you'll find one lot sticks out one side what more, and the other one sticks out on the other sides, which you don't want to be messing about having to push the beads through. So try and keep it consistent. Every other, every third. You'll play with that. They're easy enough to undo. They're not going anywhere. Let's have a look. Here we are. Just one more stitch. So that should have fixed our beads 100% into place. They're going nowhere. Turn it over so you can see our little line of beads. That one really doesn't show, that turquoise one, does it? And that amber one, not very much either. The pink ones show up a lot better. So now I've decided I want to put some more beads in. Now, if I was wanting to do it directly above, you can see that one's there. So that would be the stitch I would add the next one in. But I'm just going to be random, deliberately, to decide where we're going. So I'll go for 2 again. It'll probably bring it somewhere in the middle of this now. In. My beads have disappeared down. Push them all the way along. All the way along, so it's just in now, ready for the stitch. You see, I'm pushing my bead all the way in, wool back around my hand. I'm grabbing it, pulling it through, pulling it through. There we go. So we'll do 2 more. So these are all over the place, but it doesn't matter. You can make yourself a little graph of where you do want your beads, and the more you practice, the better that will get. So I'm in, the bead is behind. Push and push. So we'll go 2 more. 1. In fact, they've almost alternated, a little bit over alternated, but so I'm going to go in. You can push the bead down before you go in, but as long as you know where it is, and it's at the back of that stitch. So it's at the back of the stitch. Grab the yarn, pull it through, make sure my bead's there, and into the last stitch. So now we have 2 little rows with some little sparkly beads on, with a little turquoise one there that's not showing. Right, so again, I don't want to do, because can you see they don't show through the same on the other side, so that's why I'm doing it alternate rows. So I'm going to go in and do another DC row. I'm just going to do one more of these just to show you and remind you. After you've done this, this is easy enough. The trick to remember is right at the beginning on how to get the bead onto the wool or the yarn, whatever you're using, the cotton. Now, if you use the thinner needle and the sewing cotton trick, you'll never have a problem with your beads. You would have to have the tiniest beads in the world, but if you have got that, you can use your beading needle. The beading needle is a lot finer. It is something that's always good to have in your collection of needles. I find like the tiny seed beads, this one's a bit tough, there we go, do need it. Right, so I'm on this side again, so we're going to do, we'll just do one. We'll try and line it up with that funny little turquoise one now. Oh, it's like my nails cracked. Right, what am I doing? I'm trying to pick up another bead. My beads are already on here, aren't I? Right, so push it down, get ready, in. Push it back. Look at that, it's one of them turquoise ones again. Push it through and push it through. Okay, so we've got 1, we've got 2, and this is going to be a different place again. In. Where's that last 2 beads? Push it all the way down, all the way down. So can you see? I've pushed the hook in from the front. I've pushed my bead to the back. I'm going to pull it through, pull it through. Okay, last one, last bead anyway. That's the other thing, make sure you've got enough beads on for what you require. Oh, I'm trying to do the stitch before I get the bead there. Right, so in, my last tiny bead, push it all the way down so it's at the back of the stitch, hook round behind that bead, push it in and push it in. I hope that's clear. It's quite a hard one to show really. It's much easier if the person's with you. But as you can see, we've got little beads into our crochet. So there's no sewing beads in, they're already there. And believe you me, they're going to go nowhere when they're crocheted in. So that's the other thing. If you're doing a garment or something that's going to be washed and worn a lot, if they're actually on the yarn, you're not going to lose them. Like sometimes you get shop bought ones and all your crystals drop off and things like that. These are going nowhere. These are already fixed in. So as I say, as soon as you've got them on the wool, that's the easy bit. It's just remembering how to. As I say, we do have a bead needle. Now if we do have a very small bead, let's just grab a seed bead a minute. So I've got a smaller bead there. It's just a case of making sure whatever you use will go through. I can't find, oh it's there. It's the only thing with this fabric, it looks great, you can't see things on it. So actually look, could use a sewing needle for a seed bead. Got quite, considering it's a small bead, it's actually got quite a big hole in comparison. So I could have used the sewing needle for that one. Like I say, there's no chance that that's going to go through. So you can't use a needle that you would use for your yarn because it's just not going to happen. So that means you do have to make your little loop, wherever it is, your little sewing cotton loop, remembering we push the yarn through. I'll show you with this just as a reminder. So you've got your sewing loop, we push the yarn through it, we anchor it over, and then we use this part to thread through our needle that's suitable for our bead, and then our bead will just automatically pop across that. We will try it again. I'm thinking of using this yarn that I've got on now because I'm thinking of making some little smart doll bags. I might do a little demonstration or a little tutorial, should I say, on doing the bags, but I've got to decide whether I'm doing beads or not. Right, so look, so it pushed on. Look at that, nice and smooth. I'll take that off a minute. Whereas if we'd tried to thread that through that, no chance. So that is how you would do it, and how you can get a small bead on quite a thick yarn. And again, you can go on quite thick yarn. That's a double knit and a 4-ply I've used. You would probably get away with an Aran. I think your bead would have to be a little bit larger for a chunky, but this little simple piece of sewing cotton in a little loop can make life so much easier for you to be able to get your beads on to that piece of crochet. Now the thing is, if you've got any questions about that, if you think there's something you're not quite sure about what I've done, please give me sort of a message. I will try my best to help on anything like that. But that's going to be it for today. How to get beads onto our crocheted work without having to sew them on. Now hopefully I will see you soon with that little smart doll bag I'm talking about. I've got to decide on the shape. I think I'll go for a little square one. Please like, please subscribe, please make any comments, any suggestions even. That would be brilliant as well, and hope to see you very soon. Bye.